Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Sylvia.
It's good to sit down and talk today. I know a lot of times in that boardroom we get stuck back there and don't really get to talk as a person. So
we don't get to really see who each other is, like, our thoughts and feelings, other than just, what we're dealing with on the agenda for that day.
Right. So I thought it might be nice to have a conversation about your background and who you are as a human being. And so if you could share with us a little bit about, what were you doing before you became a county commissioner? What kind of brought you to this point?
Sure. So with the commissioners that ran in 2022, very eclectic group, a lot of different disciplines and backgrounds represented. I kind of say that I was probably the one that was like the bureaucrat of the group, So professionally, I've always worked in the public sector. Started out, I was a public administration student. I've had internships with regional planning agencies, not-for-profit housing. Got involved in transportation early on in my career, working at Kent County and really being involved in building databases revolving around transportation infrastructure, roads and bridges, and was really, I guess, part of a sort of a trend in the building of information systems in infrastructure. And that kind of opened the door for a lot of opportunities for me. For a brief time, I was a public works director. I believe was hired for opportunities bringing in the different things that I've learned working in transportation, asset management, inventorying our infrastructure and using that inventory and assessments to sort of lay out capital improvement plans. Participated in the sort of regional planning initiatives where we're looking kind of at the 100,000 square foot level of our infrastructure, our roads, how are they performing, and looking at corridors that needed to be upgraded. So very bureaucratic, lots of different elements of grant writing and permitting and that type of thing. And as my career progressed, was fortunate enough to get into management and start working with people and leading a team, responding to winter maintenance, water main breaks, sewer issues. So really, for me, my view of what government is, it's always been a service model and delivering infrastructure and those are things that the everyday person really understands that they're the purveyor. They use the infrastructure, but behind the scenes there's a lot of work that goes into planning it, maintaining it, and just the costs of this stuff. And then I would say what's really helped me, I guess, move from the service side of delivering infrastructure. I was a program manager for 6 years with the Michigan Department of Transportation, and the program I was involved with was managed by a board, an appointed board that represented county level governance, city level, regional planning, state level. And so really just understanding how the different levels of government work together, partnering with regional planning agencies across the state to implement training mechanisms for local agencies, balancing that program budget and the accountability of monitoring our contracts and spending and reporting that information. So I guess in a roundabout way, going back to the conversation about the different skill sets and different disciplines brought to the table, I feel like that's the one area that I probably have more experience in than most of the commissioners in regards to, just the business of governance. That said, however, I've learned a lot from the rest of the commissioners, yourself, leadership on political matters. Admittedly, I was not a very political, active person until really I guess the world changed with COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was really, I think, for a lot of us, one of those moments where we're just watching what's happening and feeling like if we don't say something, we don't get involved, the world's going to look a lot different for us.
Right. So your government background and experience has been really invaluable to the rest of us. I know we've leaned on you a lot, and a lot of times when we're looking at boards, we're like, oh, Roger would be great on this. He'd be great on this. And then we're looking and we're like, well, we should put him on 20 different boards. But so we really appreciate how you have taken a lot of the workload because of your background. You've been really invaluable to the rest of the team. So going back to some of your prior work experience, what different townships or government bodies were you working under?
Okay, so I guess right out of college, I had, or while I was still in college, actually, I interned with Grand Valley Metro Council. They had a regional information system mapping program called Regis that I was involved in as an intern. That kind of gave me an opportunity and exposure to the Kent County Drain Commission office. So I had a brief stint working with Roger Laninga from Kent County back in the late 90s. Then, that opportunity led to just more opportunities within Kent County, working for the Road Commission for over 10 years. And then I kind of pivoted out of county government, went to work for the community, the city of Cedar Springs. That's where I was living at the time. Mm-hmm. And that was a crash course in water and sewer cemetery management. Because I had a lot of experience managing, being involved in delivering, roads and transportation, but, water and sewer, that's a whole higher level
right.
of responsibility, because if the water's not running, then you have a failure, catastrophic. And so, so I was at the city of Cedar Springs. We had a number of municipal drinking water projects. We did a major overhaul of the city's water tower. We had a couple municipal well replacements and major projects. That was the first time I'd lived through, things like a water main break where, you get a call in the middle of the night, you got to get out and, dig up the road and, get there and fix it. And of course, they didn't let me, anywhere near the hole, and working with the equipment. So, and that was really good for me, learning how to work and outside of just an office management environment, but boots on the ground, first responder type. And then, the opportunity I had in Cedar Springs opened the door for, moving my family to the lakeshore. I was hired by the Village of Spring Lake in a very similar role, public works superintendent. And each community has its own different characteristics and priorities. Grand Haven heavily influences, kind of the Tri-Cities area. So, you go from kind of a small, quiet town in Cedar Springs to, kind of the summertime in Spring Lake, very happening, lots of traffic,
Mm-hmm.
And that's a community that, loves its waterfront, loves its parks, its trails, trees, and, sort of that placemaking element.
Right.
And, So, those were, good experiences, because you're dealing with a wide array of different, business owners and, residences, different priorities of the various boards. And then, after being in Spring Lake for 3-4 years, just the opportunity to, go to work for the state of Michigan, and work for Department of Transportation, as a program manager for the what is known as the Transportation Asset Management Council, and that was just a great opportunity, because it kind of seemed like all of the different jobs that I had and in my career kind of led to everything kind of feeding to that position, because there was a training element to it. There was a correspondence with local agencies, sort of a compliance review. We put on conferences throughout the state. So it really was, kind of a lot of fun, just in terms of, Michigan's a big state. It's beautiful. There's, different, experiences when you're, Southeast Michigan or Traverse City or, the UP. We had events in Bay City. Of course, I spent a lot of time in Lansing too. Right. So, getting to see the state and, being literally out there involved, with regional planning and local agencies, assessing our roads and infrastructure was, very, very valuable experience for me.
Did you also go on and get any education in those areas?
Yeah, so I finished undergrad degree in public and nonprofit administration, and then went back to grad school, and so was kind of doing the, going to work and then going to grad school at night. Did that and wrapped that up in, I think it was about 2008. So graduated with a master's in public and nonprofit administration. Emphasis areas were in the planning and sort of the management of, budgets and that type of thing. So, yeah.
So then what happened that led you to actually get involved in being interested in being a county commissioner? What was going on in your life that kind of led to that?
It's kind of a funny
change? Story.
I remember being in the locker room, playing hockey on a Sunday afternoon. We talked a little bit earlier about COVID, and so I'm, a good friend of mine is, he's kind of thinking about what's going on in the community and in the county, and, wanting to be vocal and active, and, this is a person that means a lot to me and has influenced me professionally. And he mentioned an opportunity of, hey, why don't you represent your district and I'll represent mine, and we'll kind of learn and do this together, and because we were both very passionate about defending our health choices, because really that was the thing, like a lot of parents, August 2021. Going to that, county commission meeting and being vocal, because I was very upset with my alma mater, Grand Valley State, demanding that, if you're going to be a student, you have to take a vaccine, and, not really wanting to get into the whole, background and conversation about vaccines. That's a whole nother podcast, I'm sure. But, right. But for me, it was, they should not have that right to, dictate to a person, what their, we should be free to choose, Mm-hmm. And so the irony for me was, when I was a student at Grand Valley, there was a lot of social change happening. In large measure, student population, wanted to move on past, the George Bush administration, So, kind of welcomed with open arms, the Obama administration. And, so that was a time, I think, of rapid change, in sort of policy making. And I'm sure you probably saw that too in your careers, administrations change. Because a lot of the work that I was involved in, really started at the federal level, transportation funding. There's, gas tax and vehicle registration fees, but that's just, kind of your maintenance dollars. The big ticket, federal grants, those are really tied to, Congress and administration, leadership coming from Washington, D.C. on, things like new urbanism and just, public policy as it relates to funding, coming through grants. The climate really changed, during the, late, or 2008 through, 2014. So in that time, the influence of social policies influencing government grants, I think that was really the start of that. And then, as you know, that kind of went into almost all aspects of government service. So, I guess just living through that transition, recognizing that, we're, in a different sort of social values world than what we grew up in.
Right.
I feel like just watching this big change and this shift in thinking. I'm more of a traditional parent, the way I view the role of my responsibility as a father, and what I look to the schools to help with my kids in terms of education, but social values, those are things that, as a parent, I use my voice. So I've always been more of the social values we learn in Sunday school as kids, and we take that with us, how we interact with other people and we treat other people, because you start getting into a dangerous political environment when, these grants, these dictates coming out of D.C. Have, I guess, strings attached to things, and those policies are, what D.C., requires and wants to move forward. But is that really what, the people in, Grand Haven Township or Robinson Township, is that their view on things?
Right.
So, local government, I think, is that sort of opportunity for us to, be involved and you saw what happened. Obviously, we're in these seats now. There was a dramatic, change in the makeup of that board at the commission level, and I believe a lot of that was just born out of people, getting to the point where they feel like they were pushed too far.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's kind of my story, like a lot of parents. And, it kind of goes deeper as far as, the health mandates. I have kind of a complicated health history. And, at no point in time before COVID did my employer, use a heavy hand with me as far as, well, this is the treatment we recommend as your employer.
Right.
So, what kind of changed other than, we started using, fear narratives and media to help push, a policy decision. And really, for most people, it's a health decision and it's a personal matter. And so that was sort of my, being shook awake, because I don't want it to be said that I had to leave my job because of the vaccine, but it was a conversation taking place.
Right.
And, being a cancer survivor and, going through treatment, and then this vaccine is rushed to market, and then, the trajectory at the time I was there, if you go back to, 2021, all the federal employees were told, they needed to be vaccinated, and my employer certainly wasn't going to be able to tell me how that was going to interact with my cancer meds. So,
Right.
And so I just, the opportunity to be involved, running for county commissioner and having a voice for people who feel like, nobody's listening to them. That was the thing that I guess shook me awake and, got me involved.
Yes, and I think you've shared a story before about how you were in the hospital and the protocols that were in place when you had cancer.
Yes.
And then, can you talk a little bit about that?
So I had a pretty heavy dose of, when I was informed of my cancer. The prognosis was not really very positive, not very good. Doctor said this was something I probably had for some time, kind of smoldering. And so because of my age and relative strength, they kind of came at me hard. And so fortunately, in a short period of time after, a couple rounds of, chemo and radiation, I was basically eligible to, go through a stem cell transplant. And so back in it was April of 2018, I spent, a few weeks in Butterworth Hospital, and I don't know what you know about a stem cell transplant, but basically when you're brought in, they purposely, hit you hard with chemo and kind of knock down your immune system, and then they introduce healthy stem cells, so you kind of rebound, right? Your body's starting to rely on these, healthy stem cells to kind of regenerate it, your immune system. And so while that was taking place, my daughter had her 8th birthday. So the protocol at the time, I did have visitors, and as you can imagine, this is the most sanitized floor of Butterworth Hospital. And so, here I am, with a very low platelet count. White blood cell count was very low. I think, if you were Gretchen and I would show you my blood work for that day, you would say, yeah, you're extremely immunocompromised. And so, but the protocol at that time was hospital staff would come in, they would put on a fresh mask and, kind of an overcoat, and then, their interaction with me, while they were masked. But I would have, guests come in and visitors. And, I think the protocol was to make sure that they didn't have any kind of, fever or anything. But, I have pictures taken from my daughter's little birthday party we had in my room, and she didn't wear a mask, and of course, what we were told a couple of years later with COVID, like, oh my gosh, you have to wear this mask, right? Because you're going to pass it around. And so, you kind of fast forward through that, and, here we are, with kids in schools, and, how crazy that time was. I really feel for the teachers that had to administer that, because, kids, especially the lower elementary, in the classroom, managing behavior.
Right.
So my heart goes out for that. That just seemed like a very difficult time, for everybody, and just the collective frustration of what are we doing? What are we, who's safe? And, is my daughter, a danger to her teacher? And then later on it got it even a little more strange, because, my older son, because of his grade and age, his mask rules are a little bit different than my daughter's. It's the same building, and so it got crazy, and I think a lot of people at this point can look back at that time and say, yeah, I think we were heavy-handed with our public policy on that. And, but, even to this day, you see people out and about wearing masks. And in my view, I don't have a problem with that. You know, but it's you have
your
that choice to
choice.
do
Yeah.
that, right? You have that choice if you want to get an inoculation that you believe, you know, is safe and effective. Myself, I'd rather not, you know, and I shouldn't be punished for that, you
Yeah,
know.
it's all about choice.
Yes.
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 So you talked a little bit about kids, and that's something that, you know, I've seen in you over the last couple of years is just your heart for kids.
Well, I'm still kind of a kid at heart.
Well, that
You
would
know,
explain it.
Don't have to
So-
grow up, right?
Right.
You know, getting old is inevitable, but you know, if you want to be immature, you can be immature as long as you want to.
Right, right. So can you share just some of the things that you do, you know, that where you stay involved with kids and
Yeah. So we're a kind of a sports family. You know, my wife and I are involved in you know, running the homeschool basketball program out of the Muskegon, Greater Muskegon, Grand Haven area. So for me, the opportunity to be involved with coaching and you know, helping kids recognize, you know, that they're a part of a team, and you know, how do you fill a role, and you know, help kids assess and evaluate, you know, their relationships from what they can bring to the team, you know, that type of thing. That's the good thing about sports, how kids can learn to work together and, you know, learn how to, you know, at times you have to sacrifice a little bit, you know, for the betterment of the group around you. At the same time, you know, you get the opportunity to work and grow and develop skills. So sporting, you know, basketball and baseball, you know, the Grand Haven baseball program, Tri-Cities Kids League, has their all-star game this Saturday. And so that's an exciting thing. You know, it's exciting opening day, you know.
Right.
You know, I grew up with sports. I continue to play hockey now. It's just something that, you know, like I said, I'm always kind of a kid at heart. So, you know, to be able to do that. And also, you know, I volunteer at times to you know, help Sunday school, 5th and 6th grade. And I just feel like, you know, that kids need good, you know, role models, you know, and I'm not going to make it a gender thing, you know, a dad or a mom, but just, you know, you look back in all of our experience, you know, we've had, you know, influential teachers and coaches, and here we are. It's our responsibility now. We're that age that, you know, we should be involved and help the character of our kids, and you know, care for them, and you know, pick them up when they're down, and you know, help set them on, you know, a path for life.
right. Over the past term, what have been some of your favorite things to work on, or some of your favorite accomplishments?
Well, I was excited this second year in office to be added to the Parks Commission. You know, that I think for a lot of people, we get inspired by, you know, Ottawa County and what it offers as far as natural resources and, you know, beaches and trails.
And I have to say, I'm jealous. I wish I was on that one.
You wish you were on that. I'll have to play some
Yeah.
rock, paper, scissors next
Right.
time or whatever. No, in all honesty, you know, what I get excited about from where I feel like I can contribute the most is the conversations about, you know, our infrastructure and physical things that we take care of. And just the thoughtfulness of the parks team. You know, I think that's the one thing that our county has a strong reputation nationally of being a leader in our parks. And, you know, when we have the environment that we have, you know, the geography, you know, the thoughtful management of that is something that, you know, I see the value of in that characteristic in the planning aspect of it. And it's fun. The work is fun. Also, the interactions with regional planning, you know, I've been part of the West Michigan Shoreline Regional Development Commission and the West Plan Policy Committee. So that's really the funding mechanism for transportation coming out of DC to Lansing to, you know, our local area. So those are some familiar faces, interacting with, road commissions and MDOT. And then I think, from the standpoint of the commission itself, our night meetings that we have are well attended. The public comment, I think if you can take a step back and just look at, the people that come, the creativity of their messaging. Now, we're not going to agree on every policy matter. We're not going to agree on, social priorities. But I think one of the things our board accomplished was bringing the element of the community discussion to front and center. 2 opportunities every meeting, 3 minutes. And as you saw recently, we're committed to making sure that when a person comes up to the podium, that First Amendment is right there for them. That, we're not going to tell them that they can't, say certain things. We don't have to agree with everybody that comes up, and we're not going to. That's just impossible. But I do believe that, the service that's brought from that, having an open, engagement, it's helped people, I think, interact better. Again, we're passionate. We argue. We pound on the table. But that's the beauty. It's ugly, but it's beautiful at the same time, isn't it?
Right. It's government actually working.
Yes.
Doing, struggling over ideas and, what's best for the community.
So once upon a time for me, I've had, public meetings where, there was a lot of interaction about, a commercial driveway in a, sort of a neighborhood. What color are we going to paint the water tower? We're going to turn out, a large number of people to have that conversation. So I think the conversations we're having now are at such a deeper level. They're talking about, how do we administer government in a way that reflects our liberties and protects our freedoms, and at the same time is thoughtful and caring, and so that civic engagement piece of our public meetings, it's not always fun, but I think it's something that, in the grand scheme of things, this is the good work that we're doing and what we've been asked to do.
Right, and I think it's really beautiful to see how engaged people are, because there were many years where, many of us didn't even know much about county government. What kinds of decisions do they make, and we didn't show up.
Yep.
The people were not involved, and local government is the closest to us, so It's super important that they're there.
Yes.
Yeah. So going forward, then, what are some of the things that you hope to continue to work on?
I guess the initiatives related to our groundwater board. I think there's some, interaction with the state that's necessary. I think we have, some opportunities. We've partnered with, our Water Resources Commissioner. He's actively involved in that board. We have some well drillers that are part of that board. There's a wide array of disciplines, as you know. You're on that committee with me, and I think, as we look to the future, and we talk about our aquifers like the punch bowl, right, and all the new straws coming in as we grow and develop. That's going to lower the levels. So I think we have a responsibility and an opportunity to be a leader in the state. Because there's things that can be done to conserve our water resources. I mean, because who would have thought, Ottawa County,
Right.
and a demand for water being so high, and yet it's all around us, but we have to be thoughtful, like we manage our park system, and so I think those initiatives are important. Continuing the work for our sheriff's department, our first responders with cameras. And the implementation of that in partnership with our central dispatch authority, You know, I'm a little excited to be involved with that too. That was one of the committees that I was appointed to, Central Dispatch Authority, and you know, just seeing, you know, these folks, you know, they're literally the first ones, you know, responding to, you know, crisis situations, and so it's important that we give them, you know, the tools to do that, and you know, so implementing cameras for, you know, our sheriff's deputies, you know, has a, you know, wide-reaching effect on other departments that, you know, and even legal, you know, like, okay, we have all this footage, you know, this has to be managed and, you know, accessible, and you know, what's the protocols for, you know, that information getting out. So those things I think are on the horizon, and you know, kind of excited, along with, you know, the broadband initiative to, you know, I live in an area where, you know, cell coverage isn't very good, so you know, I you know, understand the, you know, so much of our world now is relating to, you know, having access to, you know, the web remotely, and so that's an important thing, I think, to, you know, to help our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for coming in today, Roger.
Absolutely.
And I enjoyed the conversation
Me
and
too.
learning more about you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Yep.
You have a great afternoon.
You too.